What's up, everybody? It is $15 Friday, and if you were anything like me on a Friday night, well, I'm doing two things. I'm drinking a little wine, and I'm ordering a little takeout, and I've got the perfect combination for you. Let's do it. What can I say? I've got big plans on a Friday night. I have my slippers on, I've got my wine, I've got my takeout, and I'm hanging out with you guys, which is always a great time.
Good times, good times.
If you're in the same camp and you are looking to have some fun on a Friday or any night of the week, I have one of my favorite pairings for you of all time. This is one of my go-tos and something that I think you'll really, really enjoy. Not just because it's a $15 wine, but because it is a delicious, delicious pairing. And at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about, right? So let's start with the wine today. We are in smack dab the $15 category, and we are heading to a region we haven't gone to before. We're heading to South America, specifically in Argentina. But no, we're not going to Malbec. We're not doing Malbec this week. Instead, we are focusing on a lesser known variety, or at least outside of the parts of Argentina that it can be found, called Torrontés. And if you're watching and you're like, I've never heard of Torrontés, what is Torrontés? Should I know Torrontés? Is that a grape that everyone knows? No, not a lot of people know Torrontés. In fact, it's a very obscure variety, except inside Argentina and to the sommelier communities who are often tested on the variety.
Wine 1 is a white wine, clear, star bright. There's no evidence of gas or flocculation.
But because it's a very affordable grape and often comes with a lot of quality, a lot of times you see it on buy the glass lists at restaurants. Let's talk about the wine first and foremost. We've got Zuccardi Serie A Torrontés from Salta. Now, when we're talking about Torrontés, this is a grape that is mostly found in Argentina. You're rarely gonna find it outside these parts. And when you are finding it in Argentina, the best ones are coming from a region called Salta. And that is because Torrontés tends to not do so well in really, really hot climates. So instead, they plant it at higher elevations that are a little bit cooler so the grape retains its acidity and doesn't get so hot. In this case, we're talking about 6,000 feet of elevation. And just to give you a little bit of a comparison, in Napa Valley, the sort of average height of a mountain, top of the mountain is gonna be 2,500 to about 3,000 feet, with the max being about 4,500 on Mount St. Helena. So 6,000 feet of elevation, that's not nothing. It's pretty darn high. This wine is 100% Torrontés. And when you're talking about the grape Torrontés, you're mostly talking about the unoaked versions. In fact, most of the Torrontés that I've had are not oaked, but you do see some modern versions where you have a little bit of oak compartment. So let's talk about Zuccardi, and I probably should have led with this because in addition to this being a delicious wine to pair with my takeout, Zuccardi is an amazing producer that has produced 100-point wines and consistently produces wines that are 95 points and above. So to find a wine like this from that quality producer that's $15 is kind of insane. But they're known as cement heads, and they love using cement, which is how this wine is being aged. So instead of the white wine going into barrel, like maybe a Chardonnay would go into, where you're gonna get some of those toasty baking spice notes, the vanilla, the cinnamon, the cardamom, instead of that, you're getting more of a clean and pure expression. In fact, some people that use concrete say you get a little bit of that minerality. I find that you just get something that's really, really fresh and vibrant, clean. There is, not to get super, super nerdy, a little bit of oxygen exchange. So it's not like going into stainless steel where it retains like incredibly bright zippiness. There is still a little bit of that movement. So you get a little bit more weight, a little bit more texture. And I really like that in a wine. Now, let's talk about Torrontés for just a second, because this is a grape that I think, again, going back to whether it's been aged in concrete or whether it's been aged in oak, can take on a lot of personalities. But one of the primary characteristics of this variety is that it's very, very aromatic. And what I mean by that is when I stick my nose in the glass, it is jumping out at me. There are so many things that are just like in your face, which is really different from a lot of other white varieties where you kind of have to lean into it a little bit more. This is a little bit more obvious in the way that something like Viognier or Riesling, even Gewürztraminer can be. Some people like to think of Torrontés as like a cross between Riesling and Sauvignon Blanc. I've heard it described as more of like a Gewürztraminer meets Chardonnay. Muscat is another primary example that's given as a comparison, but it really is sort of a grape all on its own. There really is not a lot like it. So if I stick my nose in this glass, I mean, my goodness, I don't have to go very far to figure out what's going on here. I am getting peaches and apricots, lychee, a little pineapple, a little bit of white flour. There's a lot going on here. Like I said, heavily aromatic and intense white variety. So much stone fruit, but also just like a little bit of a whisper of something that's a little bit more mineral, more of that like salt water thing going on. And of course, because this has been aged in concrete, we're not getting any of that toastiness. We're not getting baking spice, cinnamon, cardamom, vanilla, none of that stuff here, but you are getting a slightly more ripe fruit profile. Now, the other thing I want to tell you about Torrontés is that though it's smelling definitely a little bit on the sweet side, most Torrontés are bone dry. So unlike Riesling, where you sort of run the gamut of whether or not the Riesling is going to be sweet or dry, most of the Torrontés that are coming to the stores here in the US or to wine lists, those are going to be 0 residual sugar. You're not going to get any of that there. So a really dry, nice, crisp, mineral-driven white wine with lots of nuance, lots of character, but without any of the sweetness. So if you're someone that's moving away from the direction of something that's a little bit sweeter like Riesling, this is maybe a really good sort of half step there or whole step there to get you into that dry wine category. Let's taste. Bone dry, but all of those great peachy, lychee, pineapple, guava things that I was getting on the nose really mirrored on the palate here. You're definitely gonna wanna get this on the colder side. As this wine warms, it tends to show that it wants to be a little hotter. This is not a hot wine, this is only 14% alcohol. But as it warms, some of the alcohol starts to like pop up a little bit. So I like to get this really nice and cold just to mitigate that and keep that down. Acidity-wise, and this is really what I love about this wine, you're getting really nice acidity, but it's not piercing in a way that maybe a Sauvignon Blanc would be or a really bright high acid Riesling. It's fairly moderate acidity. It's enough to pair with food, but not so racy that you feel like you need to have it alongside. Man, it just smells so intense and aromatic. I think if I had blinded this wine, I'd definitely be in Viognier camp because it gives me all of those Viognier qualities, but then I taste it, I'm like, what the heck? This tastes nothing like Viognier. It doesn't have any of the texture. It has brightness, it's got minerality, there's like something Albarino about it. Maybe it's Gewürztraminer. I mean, Torrontés is one of those wines that sommeliers throw in blind tastings to throw everybody off because we all forget that it exists. Torrontés is one of those grapes, like I said, it only really exists in Argentina. So when it's thrown into a lineup, a lot of times our minds are like, wait, oh yeah, that's right. Argentina must be Torrontés. So let's talk about food pairings because I did promise that this is my favorite takeout wine. So I guess I should have prefaced with whenever I'm doing takeout, 9 times out of 10, I'm ordering Asian food. So be it Chinese, Japanese, Thai food. I love all types of Asian food, but tonight I went Japanese route and went for sushi. So the reason that I love this wine with all of those types of cuisines is because it has something that we call perceived sweetness. So it has all of these things that we associate with fruits that have actual sugar in them, like peaches and pineapples and lychees, but there is actually no sugar in this wine. It's completely dry. So you could pair this with something that's a little spicy like a Thai dish, but you could also go with something like pad Thai, which actually does have like a little bit of sweetness to it, and they would balance each other out really nicely because the sweetness of the fruits really complement the sweetness of that dish. I went a little bit of a different route tonight because I wanted sushi, which is not uncommon, and I love this wine with sushi. It gives me a lot of those great sort of citrus fruits. So if you're thinking about the rolls that you're ordering, well, I specifically ordered things that were just a little bit spicy. So some spicy rolls in here, and then yellowtail scallions, so something that maybe wanted a little bit of sweet on top of the savory. And like I said, this wine is not gonna give you any of that sugar, but it's gonna trick your brain into thinking that it's there and sort of balance it out. So you may remember I've talked about, thinking about how your palate feels after you take a bite of something. If it's really savory, do we crave something that's a little bit sweet to sort of balance that out? And that's kind of where I am with something like this. If you are vegetarian, I also love it with something like an avocado salad, sorry with the styrofoam, with like a sweet ginger dressing. And again, going back to the notes that are in this wine, you're getting a little bit of lemongrass, you're getting that citrus, you're getting all the things that you think of that would complement a dish like that. So avocado salad, sushi, Thai food, I mean, these are like the greatest hits on my Uber Eats orders. If you were to go through everything that I've ordered in my past, they'd all probably be on there. So that is the wisdom I impart on you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is the 2019 Zuccardi Torrontés from Salta in Argentina. I didn't even really talk about the producer that much. I mean, it's super important. You should definitely know it, but honestly, this wine speaks for itself, and it's a go-to for $15 with all my takeout food. I'm gonna get to eating, and I wish you all a wonderful evening and a wonderful weekend. I'll see you all soon. Bye. I wrapped filming and I went to go eat that I never actually took a bite and took a sip, so I wanted to just tell you guys, one yellowtail scallion roll. Let's talk it. Okay, yellowtail scallion with this wine. What the heck? Bomb.com. The scallion and like the sweetness of the yellowtail pairs so beautifully with this wine. I'm like, seriously, no hyperbole. I cannot overstate how delicious this pairing is. I mean, sushi is one of those things that I really, really struggle with pairing with wine, but man, that's amazing. Anyway, just wanted to share that. Bye guys.